This is the presentation for topic 2, types of contract arrangements, and the subject, building contract administration. Let's first consider the elements of a contract. All parties really, they should be in a position that they can and are genuine in entering into a contract. They all have the legal capacity to, that is that they're not so sick that they can't read the contract, can't see what the intent of the contract is, that there is an offer and acceptance. That offer and acceptance is very important that that's in writing, and that it's followed up with some type of consideration or exchange of money there as well. The terms have to be genuine and sufficient, and the contract itself shouldn't be difficult. It should be easy to communicate and not overly verbose. Let's now look at the types of contracts being standard or tailored contracts. Whether you're using standard or tailored contract quite often is dependent on the type of relationship with the owner and the builder. There's plenty of factors to consider why you would go down one road or the other. But having said that, the standard contracts, which are pretty common in the construction industries, as I've put there, Australian Standard 2124 or Australian Standard 4000, they're pretty much acknowledged as understood in the industry. They've been well exercised and very easily communicated now because they're used so much. Tailored contracts are a little bit different, and really for the client to identify specific needs that probably won't fall into a standard contract agreement with special conditions attached to it. Let's now consider the options for obtaining a contract price. One method is lump sum or fixed price. This is used when the works can generally be defined, the scope is known, and all the specific work and services can easily be ascertained and quantified before any work is taken out. The risk is low to both the builder and the client. So as I said, the brief is complete, design documents are very accurate, and the principal won't be changing either the brief or the design in this form of contract price. Next form could be a provisional lump sum, which is very similar to lump sum or fixed price, but there is a certain amount of uncertainty with it, and it quite often includes like a schedule of rates, a bill of quantities that's priced up, but there's components in it that aren't quite known at the time of tender. An example of using a project with a provisional lump sum might be a refurbishment in a hospital, which I'm familiar with, and that's where we know that there's a certain amount of work which there's not as built drawings. There's not you can only design so far, so the amount of work in demolition and actually services reintegration can only be assumed, and so the best way to look at that is to put in a schedule of rate there, but it's still a good form. The provisional lump sum is still a good form for predicting what the final cost of the project will be, and also predicting the timeline program. Cost plus. This is usually used when the scope can't be fully defined. It's done on a do and charge basis. The risk for the contractor is relatively low. The risk for the client to actually achieve a final price is quite often can be very hard. You really need to engage a quantity surveyor or a cost engineer to help audit the costs that are coming in throughout the project. So it's another issue with cost plus projects is how to vary the work. So if there's a variation to the project, it's actually quite hard to measure that against what was originally agreed, because there usually isn't one. The last form of contract pricing is target sum, which this is really a blend of both lump sum or fixed price and cost plus in some ways. A project is accepted on tender at sketch plans and then executed at a cost plus basis. So there's a blend in there of both forms of contract pricing. With this, though, there's an added advantage that there's often a profit share at the end of it between the client and the builder, and the final price is then what we call a target sum. There's no real incentive, though, with this for the builder to save money. Having said that, I say that mainly because the closer he gets to the target sum, the better. So that's only something to consider with the target sum. But having said that, the start-up on site and the amount of documentation that's required quite often get the project up and running much quicker than a full lump sum project. Let's now discuss the 4 basic types of contracts. There's traditional, which comprises an architect or project team, and the client deals directly with the builder. Non-traditional, which includes construction management, project management, and design and construction. There's variations on the client with the construction manager as an agent. Client contracts with all consultants and a builder, and a project manager can coordinate. The client contracts the builder, who takes control basically of the whole process. There's single source contracts, or otherwise considered as turnkey. These are very similar to design and construct or D&C, except the builder also procures the site. So these single source or turnkey projects are often called BOOT, which is build, own, operate and transfer. And this is similar to D&C, but the builder also facilitates here the operation for a particular time afterwards. And the last form or type of contract is collaborative. And collaborative is where you have a partnering, a joint venture, or alliancing agreement to get a project forward to completion. And this is generally for much larger projects, and it involves not just the design, not just the build, but also the equity and financing, and there's also now shared ownership in this as well, where the builder actually buys into the development, and these are very large projects. Let's now look at the various forms of contract in a diagram. So it's easier to see the contract links here and the communication links as well. The traditional, as I said before, excellent in the sense that it's all documented up front. The design and the scope is well known. It can be fully priced. It can be programmed for where the project will be at a certain amount of time, and the final price can be planned for and calculated in a determined way. The negative, as I said earlier, is that lead up with the initial design, the long lead in the design coming into a traditional project. Let's now consider a non-traditional form of contract, construction management. I've shown 2 hierarchy diagrams there of agency and non-agency. Construction management form of contract will vary depending on how the principal or client wants to involve specific or specialist subcontractors and contractors involved in the project. The aim, I suppose, with this type of contract is to have time, cost, quality in the best interest of the client. My experience is it's been used for projects such as hospitals, a large children's hospital. The builder gets more involved in this particular form of contract in the design process, and it's an open book of payment where all the builder's costs are reimbursed. And so for the client, this really does reduce some of the risks of claims and litigation, and the client should also obtain some benefits from his industry experience and access to discounts and negotiation ability with suppliers and subcontractors. There could be a problem, of course, for the client if the builder doesn't vet or evaluate subcontract tenders very well as well with this type of contract. But generally, a fairly good delivery process for time, cost and quality for the client. Let's now consider the project management form of non-traditional building delivery. The project manager, as you can see here, has a communication link with everybody in the building team. and has a single point of responsibility, but often not always a contractual. You can see the principal has a contractual link to everybody in the building delivery process. But the project manager has overall planning, control, coordination of the project from inception to completion, and he's the first member of the project team. The project manager, or PM as I'll call him, has no real direct contractual link with the design team, but expected to take a full lead role in that delivery process. The advantages I can see of this type of project, it's quite often used in large shopping centres where the project manager has a considerable amount of experience in large scale building delivery, and so there's a great benefit there for a shopping owner to actually get on with their business of retailing and let the project manager take full control of the building delivery process from inception to completion. The only real difficulty of the project management arrangement is if there are problems, and the contractual arrangement can often be lead to a lengthy and expensive litigation process with a project management arrangement. Now let's move on to another form of non-traditional, the design and construct method of building delivery contract system. You can see here the design and construct contractor really has a lot of control over the process and the building delivery in this form of agreement. The agreement has really been brought about by clients' dissatisfaction with relationship arrangements and timing of traditional projects and other forms of non-traditional projects. So it has been otherwise and it is otherwise known as performance-based contracting, and you can see that the shift or the risk moves more towards the contractor here. So compared to traditional, there's no buck passing between the architect and the builder. It's a fairly simplistic approach, and the link between the client and the groups involved in the building, it breaks that chain of communication and responsibility. So the client and the builder must communicate really well together. There's a form of contract actually that really does give you good commencement and completion times, and because the builder adopts a major portion of the risk, this is one form of contract which I strongly believe good contract administration skills are really vital, because you're administering the design and thus the buildability, as well as the speed and the final cost of the project as well. Now let's look at a single source a form of contract. I've shown here BOOT, which I discussed previously, and BOOT is an acronym for Build, Own, Operate and Transfer. If you look at the simple diagram I've shown there on the PowerPoint presentation, the part there with the build, the excavator in it, that progression there is very much the design and construct, what I've just discussed on the previous slide. What makes a BOOT arrangement different is the operate and the maintenance, those parts of the diagram on the right hand side. So the builder is actually entering into an agreement where he'll won't only be involved in the design, construction, handover, but that handover will be later because he'll also maintain and operate that asset or building for a certain period of time. This form of agreement's really popular with governments, particularly for roads, prisons, tollways, and in Australia now even hospitals. Really, what makes it such a good form of delivery is it's a single point of responsibility and it's a guaranteed service to the community. There's a number of other issues too, is that it provides the government with a simple, reliable source of looking forward to how they can project funding and financing and that type of long-range forecasting. But having said that, there are some issues with boot agreements which they rely on a valuable database of being able to maintain and operate buildings and assets. So there is often problems with that type of data being compiled at a tender stage, that a lot of contracting organisations don't have enough data there to necessarily look at that in as much detail as what they possibly could. The other forms, this is sort of showing the simple diagram of the communication and contract arrangement there in build, own, transfer as well. And they can come in several forms: build and transfer, build, own, operate, transfer, and build, own, operate, which never transfers. The builder takes control of that for the whole period of the life of the asset. If we look at the diagram of build, own, operate, transfer, and push that out a bit more with more details in it, you can see really it is a lot different to a traditional form of building delivery or even design and construct. There's a lot more history, knowledge, and operating data that's vital in putting forward a bid for a boot project, a single source project. So there's a lot to consider when tendering on such a project. Let's now look at collaborative form of contract arrangement, which is partnering. It's still relatively new in Australia and used only for larger projects such as universities, infrastructure, civil projects, TAFEs, hospitals, that type of thing. The benefits of this form of agreement are real and significant, which translates to lower costs and increases in opportunities for innovation. I mean innovation in several different ways. It's not just the building design, the fabric and speed of delivery, but also the financial arrangement and the commitment and the involvement of the community as well. There's a real strategic focus win-win with this style of agreement, and the partner charter that's established between the parties establish a good working relationship between the parties, while a legal commitments between the parties then are established via a traditional contract model, and those are recognised. What's so good about this particular form of delivery is that it eliminates a lot of risk for the contractor. So the contractor is under perfect conditions. This type of strategic alliance would mean that the client will pay no more or less than what's required for that type of asset or facility, and the builder is in most cases would be guaranteed of a reasonable return. So as I said, it's the ideal form of delivery, but at this stage it really is still quite new in Australia, and it hasn't really been tested by time. We've come to the end now of the Topic 2 presentation, and it's time to review. So if you haven't done so already, I suggest you read through the study guide on Topic 2 and refer to the subject course text, read through those in detail. Then you can work your way through those workbook activities for your workbook submission at the end of the semester. If you've got any questions, you can post them on the student forum, or you can email me directly.